Hi, my name is Lillian Diaz. I am the Director of Bands at Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks. It's a private Catholic school. If you guys haven't met me already, I graduated here from CSUN in 2024 with my bachelor's in music education, and then my other bachelor's is in clarinet performance. I did start the credential program here over at CSUN, but I ended up taking a gap right before getting this job. So yeah, I am 1 year post grad, and I am fully director of bands at Notre Dame. I teach marching band, concert band, jazz, worship band, because again, it's a Catholic school, so I run our worship ensemble, and I do the musical theater on campus. And the reason why I'm giving this presentation is because while I do believe CSUN prepared me quite nicely to be an educator, I vouch for CSUN music education. The people are great, the faculty are great. However, I was publicly educated all of my life, and jumping into a private school as a teacher, I was looking through all of my resource notebooks going, what the heck, where did I learn this? I have never seen scholarships before. I've never seen what admission charts look like, because that's something that public schools don't really look at or talk about. And I do feel like the curriculum here at CSUN Music Ed is geared towards public education. So I was a bit lost when I first dove into private school teaching. And if that's the route any of you individuals want to take, or if you end up at a private school, I don't want any of you to be as confused as I am when it comes to working. So yeah, just a rundown. I will give a quick description, my general experiences and things that I've noticed, and just the overall involvement that you will have as a private music teacher. There is admissions, scholarships, budgeting, and we'll talk about unions at the end. But yeah, a basic description of what I've noticed. So what makes a private school a private institution is, one, it's not state-owned. So we go to California State University Northridge. It's owned by the state of California. It's funded by California. Private schools can be owned by individuals, corporations, religious bodies. Like I mentioned before, Notre Dame High School is a Catholic private school. So we are owned by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, or any other nonprofit organizations. And as I said before, if a private school is not owned by the state, it is not receiving funding from the state. So private schools rely on donations. Any teacher salaries are paid through donations, materials, any form of construction or upgrading of the campus is through donation only. It will not get approved by the state, because the state doesn't own it. And here's a big one. Private schools are not accredited. When a school is accredited, that means that it's been reviewed by the Board of Education, and the Board of Education declares that this school is meeting the national standards, the state standards. All of those standards that are on the NAFME website listed, the VAPA standards for music. As a music teacher at a private school, you don't necessarily have to go by those standards. If your private school is not accredited. Many private schools go through the Western Association of Schools and Colleges to get accreditation, because they still want their students to end up going to college. And you can't really do that if you don't go to a school that's accredited. So private schools don't have to be. Many of them end up going that route anyway, because they want their students to go to a university. But keep that in mind if you ever do end up at a private school. Those NAFME standards that we keep searching for, you don't really have to follow them unless your school is accredited. Because I work at a Catholic school, a lot of our courses are geared towards religion. Theology, Bible study, those are filtered for the institution itself, a Catholic school. But on the other hand, we do offer AP Physics, AP Chemistry. So Notre Dame High School is accredited, and like I said, not every single private school is under that category. And lastly, because it's a private school, there is no open enrollment. So not everyone can get into a private school. It's the same process as a university. So there's an application, there's an interview process, depending on the school. If you want to get in and you say you do band, for example, there's an audition portion of your application. So students have to apply and get accepted into a private school. And yeah. So again, not anyone can just join a private school. Your classes will be smaller. The general school population is much smaller because it's very competitive to get into specific high schools. So those are the four main differences of what makes a private school separate from public education. And here are some things that I've noticed that, I'm gonna move this because I move around a lot when I speak. So yeah, here are some things that I've noticed from my campus as well as other. I've been to Laurel Hall Middle School, I've been to Chaminade, Sierra Canyon, those are all other private religious schools. And I'll start with behavior, only because there is this stigma behind private school students being snotty, bratty. There's less fights at private schools. My general experience with my students, as well as other students from other private institutions, is they are a lot calmer. I've never seen a single fight break out. I've never seen an argument. The students generally, and I say generally, of course, there are outliers to every data point, but students are, again, they're much calmer and less aggressive, and this is mostly because not all, but most students at private schools are not growing up in neighborhoods that have gang violence or any violent police activity, any rioting. You can afford to go to a private school. Likely you're living at a very comfortable environment. So that contributes to the behavior of private school students. They're generally a lot calmer, and because it's a private school, it's easy to just expel a student when they act out of line. I don't think there is any suspensions at Notre Dame High School. If you mess up, you are out of Notre Dame High School. And the deans can do what they want, really. It's a private school. If they don't want you at that institution, if you're not meeting their requirements, they will expel you. So that's why the behavior of private school students is very squeaky clean and very, friendly and welcoming. And like I said before, the class sizes are really small at private schools because of how competitive it can be to get into certain institutions. For example, Notre Dame only has 1,200 students total, versus Granada Hills, there's 5,000 students. So there's much smaller institutions, and your classes can be about 10 students. We only need 3 students total to create a class on campus. So the quotas are much smaller at private schools. So if, as an educator, you want that smaller group feel in your classrooms and you don't really like having to manage 30 people in your classes, private school could be an option for you because your classes guaranteed will be really, really small. Private schools, again, they're not owned by the state, so they don't need to conform to any ADA rules and regulations. Meaning I have never seen a ramp on any stadium. So if you're on a wheelchair or crutches, you can't get on the bleachers. we have buildings that are 2 stories, 3 stories, but there are no elevators. Anyone who plans to become a mom, there is no designated breastfeeding area, and the school doesn't have to provide that because they don't need to conform to that regulation. And also, private schools don't need to provide special education if they don't want to. So for those of you who are considering going towards a special education route of music or music therapy, private school won't have much to offer for you because most of them, not all, but most of them don't offer special education at their campus. And just a fair warning, again, if you have medical issues where, sometimes you need a brace or you undergo surgery, it's going to be really difficult to get around some buildings because they just don't need to be ADA compliant. Lastly, the scheduling, depending on your school, is very different from public school calendars. I'm speaking for my school and other religious schools. We follow religious holidays very closely. And we might get some more days off compared to other public schools because Notre Dame High School is Catholic. So even the smallest feast days within Catholicism will get the day off, or we'll get a half day off. The bishop gives us 1 day off of school every month because he's the bishop. And for some it might be cool, you get a day off, or you get to leave work early. But when you're planning concerts, when you're trying to plan your playing tests or any other form of scheduling, the calendar can be very difficult to work around because you got athletics going on, you got other departments within the visual and performing arts section. Because I work at a Catholic school, worship calendar, the ministry calendar. So when I'm trying to schedule these rehearsals, trying to schedule my performances, just know the bishop could say, hey, we got no school tomorrow, and you just plan your final playing test of the semester. So the calendar can get a little bit funky. I will say some teachers love it because they get to just go on about their job on a whim, and it is nice to have those days off. But just some things that I've noticed is these 4 differences where I'm going. I have never seen a building without a ramp until I got to Notre Dame. Or I've seen schools that are required to have a special education department. But then when I get to private schools, that's not even an option for your child. So these are the 4 main differences in general experience that I've noticed. And again, I've been publicly educated my entire life. So not only was it a shock to me as a person who has experienced public education, but also as a teacher. I've seen my students, again, in crutches trying to get through a building, and it's the only option they have. So yeah, these are just general differences that I've noticed. Here's the fun stuff. So private schools don't really have feeder schools. So what a feeder school is, there's that relationship between a neighboring middle school and a neighboring high school, where the band members or music students from one middle school are going to feed into the music program at the high school. That's public schools typically have that neighboring school where they get students from, they recruit from specifically. Private schools don't really have that because we have students applying from everywhere. I have students coming from Santa Clarita. Some of them are driving an hour and a half to be at Notre Dame. In a private school scenario, for example, at a Catholic school, you will probably get students from another Catholic middle school. And it's easy to pinpoint that middle school or feeder school if it's local, if they're within the same city or within a reasonable radius, then you can kind of eyeball that private middle school and say, okay, we're getting music students from there. But it's all over the place. It's, again, you have to apply to a private school, so that can be a really big turnoff for some families. Private schools are expensive. The average tuition is $15,000. Notre Dame is $22,000 a year. So some of you guys are going, oh my gosh, exactly. So it is a bit of a turnoff for students and their families when they see that they have to apply and they got to pay to get in. So really, it's kind of like we get some turnaround every year where it's like 1 year Notre Dame High School is getting students a lot from Laurel Hall Middle School. Oh, but the next year we're getting more students from Chaminade Middle School. So it's kind of hit or miss on where we actually get our students from. But as a music teacher, you're actually extremely involved in the admissions process. Automatically, as the director of bands, I am on the admissions committee because I want to grow my program. For the middle schoolers who are applying to Notre Dame, I want to know who plays an instrument. I don't have any sousaphones, so which one of these applicants play tuba? So I'm looking through those applications myself. I'm checking their grades, yeah, but I'm checking how long have they been in band? What instruments do they play? Are they committed to band? Do they really like it? Or when I interview them, are they going, well, it's my mom made me do it, and I don't really enjoy being in band. So it's, even if you're not on a admissions committee, if you end up at a private school, the admissions office will be your best friend. You will be working hand in hand whether or not you're on that committee, because again, you're looking for the oboe players, you're looking for the sousa players. You can quite literally say, my band is really small this year. When we look at the applications, can you put a separate pile of music students only and put those applications in front of everyone else, above the football players, above the other athletes, the straight A students, put the band kids up top. Make sure you see those applications first. And that's the luxury of being a music teacher, is that you can music teacher at a private school, you can kind of handpick the students that you want in your program, but you just have to make that connection with the admissions committee if you end up at a private school. This is based off of last year. So 26 out of 30 musicians got accepted to Notre Dame High School. So out of the 30 musicians, middle school musicians, 26 actually got accepted into Notre Dame. However, only 12 of that group actually joined the marching band. So yes, we had 26 musicians get into Notre Dame, but only 12 of them actually signed up for a music class. And then 2 out of those 12 received a scholarship. So while it's really nice that, again, it's like you're handpicking your students and you're kind of prioritizing music over the athletes, over the straight A students. You can say, band kids are the most important. I don't care about the other kids. Put their applications up top and they'll get early acceptance because they're band students. However, some parents and some students are under the impression that if I say I'm a musician, I'm gonna get into this private school. So once they declare, I played clarinet and I want to play clarinet in the Notre Dame band. Once they get accepted, it's okay, I'm in. goodbye, banned. And that was just their way of actually getting into the school. It wasn't a declaration of commitment. So that's the downside. As a music teacher, I don't know if it's band director, orchestra, choir, if that's what you want to do at a private school, squash that mentality right away, because you still have to get into the school, right? You still have to get into the private school. And it kind of defeats the issue of, I am only saying I'm playing an instrument because I want to get into Notre Dame, and then once they get in, it's where are they? Why aren't they in band? They said they played an instrument. Why aren't they in band now? They got into the school they wanted. They don't need to do that anymore. The best way to recruit and avoid this issue is, one, again, removing that notion of if you play an instrument, you automatically get into the school. That's not the case. Make that very clear. Because there are no feeder schools, you are kind of like this main publicity person, advocate for your band. I'm taking my band to any public venue that I can, and I'm putting out flyers and brochures for Notre Dame. Because again, it's a private school, so we don't really go to all these public events. We can't go to other public schools. If I want to go to James Monroe High School and give a performance, I can't, because it's not a private school. So I'm doing my best to put the band out there as much as I can and spread the word that Notre Dame exists and we have a marching band. Most private schools, their admissions or their publicity office, they hold visit days where 8th graders get to come in, walk through the campus. Their parents are also invited as well. Every single time there's a visit day, I request that they come and see the band room. I put that in an email. It's on a calendar, and I say, hey, you guys are coming to Notre Dame next Wednesday. You're gonna stop by the band room, right? And just, every single time they're here, make sure they walk through the band room. Make sure they meet you. They can even sit in through a rehearsal if you're comfortable with that. I've had just a group of 8th graders in the back room while I'm rehearsing my wind ensemble. So take advantage of those visit days or even individual tours if you can, if you have the time. There have been times when I don't have a class, I'm in my prep period, but I see a family just walking around campus because they're showing their kid Notre Dame, and I'll step out of my office. I'll introduce myself, talk about band. I'll get to know the student, the parent. You just have to kind of go over the top with the publicity and just plugging your band at all times. And I do booths whenever there's like a booth, like within private schools, there's usually some form of institutional fair where Sierra Canyon, Little Hall, Chaminade, they'll put up booths around a specific church or another school, just again plugging their institution. Always have band information out there, or music, orchestra, choir, anything about your program, just plug it. Be so aggressive with the way you advocate for your band. And lastly, I use social media so much. It's just another way to get your band out there. Obviously with parental consent when you take photos and videos, but typically, and this goes for both public and private, when you register your child, you do sign a waiver agreeing to photographing your child, but still be careful with posting pictures or videos of your ensemble. But social media is really good recruitment. It's kind of like a new form of promotion in 2025. Everyone's a social media influencer now. Every single brand, every store has an Instagram account. And I strongly believe that social media is a really good way to promote your program. We're gonna get into money stuff now, because this goes hand in hand with admissions. So this is one of the things that I have never had to deal with until it was right in front of me. I've never had to pay tuition to go to high school. Being a college student here at CSUN, no professor taught me what to do when your principal gives you $15,000 in scholarship. I didn't know. I've never seen this before. So typically at a private school, because they are expensive, they are thousands of dollars every year, there is a financial aid office. Students get scholarships, they get grants. They're either private scholarships or through the institution itself, kind of like the way we get money at our university. It's a whole system similar to FAFSA and our own financial aid department. And if you're lucky, your music program could have its own set of scholarship funds. My school, I do have a band fund, so like I mentioned before, every year I will get $15,000 from the school, and I get to do whatever I want with it. I can distribute it to one person, and they get all $15K, or I can split it up between two students, and they get, about $7,000. But there is still a process in how you distribute these scholarships. There's still a strategy on how to give this out, because you kind of have to use it as an incentive in a way. While yes, if you want to make your scholarships audition based, it's clearly which student is excelling musically, which student is not only a good musician, but also a good student. However, you only get that set amount of money every year. You don't get any more. You can't change it. Once you give it to a kid, you can't just take it back. Unless there's some rule or regulation that either you set or the school sets, but you only get that one set amount a year. So you do have to be very wise and strategic on how you distribute these. And again, I didn't really know what this or how to go about this until it was right in front of me. But it is important to keep in mind that with scholarships or any other grants, there will be students who will join your program regardless if they get that money or not. There are some students who they love to sing, they love playing their violin, they love playing clarinet. That it doesn't matter if they get a scholarship in band or not, they're gonna join your ensemble. So the people who are die hard and want to be in this music program, you probably don't need to use that scholarship money on those people as much as you want to, and as much as you love their enthusiasm to be part of your program. If they're gonna join it anyways, you should use that scholarship to bring more people in your ensemble. Because again, regardless if they get that scholarship or grant, they're gonna join. They're still gonna be in your ensemble all 4 years, probably. And yeah, as I mentioned before, you just have to set your requirements and your guidelines with the parents and students. I don't want to give a scholarship to a student for, let's say their scholarship was for sousaphone. They had to be a sousa player in marching band for this scholarship. Cool, they get the scholarship, it's in their account, and then they drop out of band their second year of high school. That's not gonna fly. So you have to make that clear that if you are receiving the scholarship, it means that you are in band all 4 years. Not only does it help with the numbers of people staying in your band, but also that money could have gone to someone who will grow and thrive in your program. And it's not fair. It's a little deceitful for someone to take a band scholarship and then not do band all 4 years. So you just have to set that boundary, get it in writing, get it signed, that scholarship contract signed by parents, by students, so it's an agreement that I am receiving this choir scholarship. So now I have to be in choir all 4 years of high school. Or maybe you want to make it, I had to be in choir for 2 years. It's whatever you want, but you do have to kind of structure it so that it doesn't get lost with interpretation, or you just have to keep track of someone else's financial aid, basically. So here's one example of how I divided some scholarships for the next couple years. For 2025, I got the 15K, and they decided to give it to one student. So one student received that full $15,000 scholarship. But the way it's set up, it's not $15,000 flat, it's $15,000 every year. So the scholarship is laid out as $15,000, but by the end of their senior year, they would have received $60,000 in scholarship money. And because they're receiving $60,000, you have to keep track of who's getting the money. You do have to be on top of which student's getting this fund. I put a generic name, band fund, but we have the band fund. We have a John Combs scholarship. We have a Robert Reed scholarship. So it's a lot of money tracking every single year, just who's still receiving this scholarship, who's the next group of kids that are gonna receive the funds. For next year, I'm gonna split it up into 2, and then by 2027, it'll be 3. And this is based off of financial aid. The reason why I'm splitting it up more is because less students are applying for financial aid. So I'm trying my best to distribute them as equal as possible. But yeah, just keep in mind that how many of you want to end up at a private school where you're kind of like thinking about it? Yeah, so this is something that's like, and are you publicly educated, privately? What's your publicly? Yeah. So this is something I have never seen or thought about ever before in my life as someone who's been publicly educated, and someone who went to school here at CSUN. Again, the curriculum here at CSUN is geared towards public education. I was never taught any of this until I got to Notre Dame, and it's like, well, who's getting the John Combs scholarship this year? I don't know. And if you like schedules, if you like making Excel sheets, scholarship tracking is really fun. I like the colors, I like the numbers. But this is somewhat of an extra step that private school teachers need to take compared to public school teachers. Not to say one's harder than the other, but this is just one more thing that public school teachers probably don't have to worry about so much for their program. But it is really cool. Okay. We gotta talk about union. Who knows what a union is or what unions do for teachers? Yeah, some of us are like, okay. So, what unions do is they advocate for teachers. When a teacher is not making enough money, they're not getting compensated the way they should be, a union speaks up. When buildings don't have ramps for wheelchairs to go over, that's when the union speaks up. The union advocates for students, they advocate for teachers. Same thing like a workers' union. If, let's say, I don't know, let's say McDonald's employees are not making enough money, they're not making fair wages, the McDonald's itself is super dirty and everything's outdated and their equipment is just unsafe, there is a union that will fight for those workers. And there's unions right now fighting really, really hard for public educators. That's why we see strikes so often. with teachers. Because some teachers aren't making, most teachers really in the United States are not making fair, livable wages. They don't have the supplies they need for their classroom to succeed. That's what the union's fighting for. I'm actually going to go forward. So yeah, unions fight for equitable salaries, proper benefits, so healthcare, vision insurance, dental, or even family coverage as well. Better working conditions. Let's say your classroom isn't certified for earthquake protection. Your classroom's gonna rock and shake because it hasn't been updated. And during an earthquake, it's good luck. Unions are able to negotiate contracts for you. So if you're receiving that contract from your employer and there's something not looking right or something's not looking equitable, you can send that to the union and they will discuss it with your employer that this contract is actually not suitable for my client. And they can provide legal representation for you. So if, God forbid, that there is a breach in your contract or something's not adding up, they can provide legal representation if you can't afford it. So the union is a really good entity for educators, not just music educators, teachers as a whole. The union fights for teachers and they are wonderful. However, most private school teachers are not unionized. So there is no one advocating for my salary. There's no one speaking up when something's not looking right in my contract. Notre Dame is treating me very well, but there is this belief that private school teachers make more than public school teachers. That's not always the case because there is no one fighting for a higher salary at private schools. If you get lowballed at a private school and you're not getting paid the way you know you should, there's no one to speak up for you other than yourself. Or you're noticing that, hey, I'm gonna be on crutches or whatever, my student's on crutches and they can't get up the bleachers. There's no union to fight for that. It's you are speaking up for your own and you are advocating for yourself. Not to scare anyone. I know you said you're thinking about private school. This isn't to scare you. Like I mentioned, Notre Dame is treating me very well. But you do have to be prepared to look out for yourself. I have my contracts printed out. They're hard copies. I have things highlighted, things underlined, like my salary, my hours that I'm expected to work, the classes that I'm supposed to work. That type of data, I'm circling it, highlighting it, making sure that this is set in stone and it can't change. And if it does, I need to speak up for myself because no one else, there is no union to speak up for me. So I am just on top of my salary. I make sure my paychecks are adding up because there's no other entity doing that for me. When I'm in meetings, I take notes in my meetings and I email my notes to every attendee, letting them know that, hey, you said this, by the way, or this is what we discussed. And it might seem like I'm kind of like overcompensating for the lack of union, but I don't want any slip-ups. I want to be prepared, and it's not like I'm preparing for the worst per se, but it's this continuation of advocating for myself, making sure that everything's looking right on my end, and it doesn't really hurt to do that. It helps me kind of build a backbone as well, knowing that I might have to speak up on this, or being able to speak up on something in general, because I was someone who was very shy and passive, and I let things kind of slide. But because I know that there is no union backing me up, I gotta fight for myself. And private school teachers, they just need to. So while yes, at a private school, you can get paid more than public educators if your school has the money for it. Notre Dame, the tuition's $22,000. We just got a donation of $1 billion to the school. Teachers get paid quite nicely. If you work at a private school that might not value music, you might get paid better at a public school if your private institution doesn't really care for the arts as much. However, the American Federation of Teachers and the National Association of Teachers Union, they do have programs that are specifically for private schools. So it's not that unions are zero, they don't exist, but it's very minimal. They are such small programs, and I don't even think there's one in California. So you really have to dig and search for a union within your private institution if you end up at one. So unions do exist, but they are very rare. And that could be one of the first things you ask around, not so much your employer. I don't recommend asking your employer right off the bat if there's a union, because there is that trouble notion on the employer side, but it doesn't hurt to ask your colleagues, or before, while you're applying, emailing another teacher on campus, hey, is there a union? Or how did things go about if there's a breach in the contract, or if something's wrong? What happens if something goes wrong? Always look to advocate for yourself, because you kind of have to. And I think someone asked about my credential. I did not receive my teaching credential. I dropped out of the credential program because I got this gig. So at private schools, they can technically put whatever requirements they want for teachers. You might not even need a bachelor's to work at a private school. If they want you, they want you. So a credential is not necessary unless the private school wants that specifically. And they can go without the credential. They can also include it in their job description. It's whatever the private school wants. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, and that is enough. However, having your credential still helps you bump up on that pay scale. It's credential, you'll make this much more than the base pay, or post-grad units, it's still up. Masters, right, you'll get paid significantly more if you get a master's, or DMA. And a lot of teachers at Notre Dame have their PhDs because the school can compensate for their salaries. So please, if you guys are thinking about private school teaching, please get your credentials. It helps with the money, it helps your training too. So if you are going, well, I'm gonna end up at a private school, this is what I want to do, get the credential anyway. It still helps. And if you go without the credential and you end up at a private institution, you're pretty much stuck teaching at private schools until you get that credential. Because California, if you want to teach publicly, you need that credential. So in my circumstance, and I'm okay with being open, in my circumstance, I'm stuck teaching at private schools because I don't have my credential. I can work at Notre Dame, and if I'm done with Notre Dame, I can go to Chaminade. You don't need a credential. I can go to Sierra Canyon, Bishop Amat, all of the private schools that don't require a credential. I'm kind of stuck within the school, and there's not a lot of private schools around. But if I had my credential, and let's say Notre Dame's not working out, I can go apply to Granada Hills. I can go apply to James Monroe because I have my credential and I am allowed to work there because I have my credential. So please get your credentials regardless if you want to work at a private school. It's worth it. You will get paid more. And also your options go from here to here if you have your credential. So please get those credentials. Don't be like me. I'll get it eventually, but they are important. And if you plan on getting them at CSUN here at CSUN, it's, again, I advocate for CSUN music education. It's Meridian's awesome, Clemp is awesome over in the credential program. This is a good spot, but again, in general, it's a really good investment to get your credential. So with that, I'm gonna leave my email right here. It's my last name, Diaz@ndhs.org, or my phone number is also right here. If you text or call me, please leave your name. I get phone calls all the time from parents and other Notre Dame people from other universities as well. So I get random number texts and phone calls all the time. So if you have a question after this, and let's say you forgot to ask it now and later you're going, well, I had a question about so and whatever, this and that, and you contact me, please leave your name and let me know that you're from CSUN too. But does anyone have any questions before? Yes.
In terms of like travel, like if you're taking a band somewhere, like how is it, like are you able to like get buses through the school, or is it more like because I know, I guess for some context, I went to both private and public school. Like my parents worked at private school for a while, so I got like tuition waivers and I went there, and then transferred to public school in high school. And so at private schools, like whenever I was in sports or band, it was like your parents are driving you to the venue, like be there at this time. And then at public schools, it was like, oh yeah, meet outside the band room at this time, and bus loads at this time, and then get back. So is there like, what is your experience with that, I guess?
Yeah, so my experience at Notre Dame, and I can speak on Notre Dame and all the other archdiocese schools, we provide transportation for our students, always, no matter where we're going. If we go to, I'm in Sherman Oaks, if we go 5 minutes down to Ventura Boulevard for something, I have to provide a bus. And within our budget, we have travel expenses on our budget, or we have a band booster account, and the band booster can pay for the bus. But Notre Dame and all the other archdiocese schools, we are required to provide transportation for our students. Good question. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
What's the worship band that you're talking about? Like, what is it? Like, touch on like.
Yeah. So worship band, we perform at every single mass we have on campus. So because it's a Catholic school, we have a mass once a month. Depending on the bigger Catholic holidays like Christmas, we'll have 2 masses in December. And then feast days, we'll throw in an extra mass. And Catholicism in general provides a lot of art and music, and the school reflects that as well. So my worship band consists of a full choir. I do have strings, I do have a drummer, a bassist, guitarist, and a piano player, and we sing through the mass. We sing the Gloria, we'll start with the Kyrie, and then we do our general worship music. So I work with the campus ministry, getting the calendar and what mass is for what feast, what holidays are we going, and based off of the specific days for the mass, I have to decide the rep that fits that mass appropriately. So yes, it's a worship religious ensemble is what I run. And you had a question.
Yeah. How, like in your experience so far, is like the parent culture, like is there any difference between like public and private schools, and does like, you know, paying, or if you have like the child of a donor who's like in your program, does that like affect anything? Or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we do have a legacy program at Notre Dame. So it's if your parents or grandparents went to Notre Dame, you're gonna get in, no matter your test score, no matter what you do, you're gonna get into Notre Dame because mommy and daddy went there, grandma and grandpa went there. So at Notre Dame, we have generations of families that have gone to Notre Dame, and they donate big. to my band, they donate big to the school. So the amount of parents and alumni support is extremely large at my school, and I can speak again for other archdiocese schools as well. I make thousands from alumni members. Parents, I swear some parents have nothing else better to do than to be around the band and serving food, helping lift a cart or loading the buses. I would argue that the amount of support I receive from parents and alumni is far more than I've ever seen at my public school jobs. Not only do they donate financially, but because there's such a rich history of family going to the school, we want to make this school a better place. We want to make sure we uplift the band as much as we can. So I've literally had 70-year-olds on their hands and knees scrubbing the band room floor because they want to clean it up. They just want the band room to look nice. They've organized my library just because they want to. There are people who, again, like their family has been in this band since the 1940s, and they love the program, they love the school. So yeah, I would say the amount of parent support that I get is much bigger than I've ever seen at public schools. Any other questions? Yes?
In terms of instrument repairs, like I know like LAUSD has their own like instrument repair shop that they send their instruments to. What do you do when you need like maintenance on an instrument?
Yeah, Notre Dame has a partnership with Bertrand's. So I send our instruments to Bertrand's Music. Or woodwinds, I like RDG, and I do have a set amount of money in my budget for repairs. So I have RDG money to send, my clarinet, my oboe, but we still have partnerships. Notre Dame is RDG and Bertrand's Music. Any other questions? Yes?
Does the religious aspect, I don't want to overstep any boundaries personally, but does the religious aspect of the school, like have you encountered any barriers there, like as a teacher?
Yeah, and again, I'll be open. I grew up Catholic. I did baptism, communion, confirmation. I went through everything. And then when I got to college and as I got older, I kind of stepped back a little bit. So when I started off as director of bands over at Notre Dame, handling worship band, I'm going, what does this calendar mean? What is Lamb of God? What is this? Like some terms that I'm like, okay, I remember what it is, but I don't recall what it means. Adhering not only to an academic calendar, but a religious calendar as well. It's just a whole new set of dates that I have in my head now. So it did set me back a little bit, only because it's like, I don't remember what any of this means, but I have to run mass for the entire school body, so I need to just lock in and get it. I've watched so many YouTube videos. I've talked to, because we're Catholic, we have a priest that lives on campus. So I will talk to Father Joe. I will talk to the ministry team and I just ask. Father Joe answers all of my dumb questions, and he's very patient and he's very kind. So when I have those setbacks and I'm like scratching my head, like, this mass is for this feast, what am I supposed to sing? Because I have to program my masses with what's going on with the calendar. And all I do is ask. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock when I'm running worship band. And I will say, at a Catholic school, I do have to start every single class with a prayer. And all of my lessons have to tie into Catholicism. So again, if you end up at a religious institution, that's just one of the requirements that you have to make. And if you're not comfortable doing that, it might not be the place to go. However, at Notre Dame, we have Jewish teachers. We have atheist teachers or Buddhist teachers as well. We have Jewish students at Notre Dame. It really depends on the type of institution. Notre Dame has been very kind to me, very welcoming. They're very welcoming to the students who aren't Catholic themselves, or the teachers. In Mass, if you're not receiving communion, you get one of these. And no one blinks, no one bats an eye. It is what it is, and we respect other people's religion, regardless if it's a Catholic school. But at the end of the day, you have to be at the Mass regardless. You have to give the prayer, you have to, participate in that sense. Any other questions?
All right, well, in that case, Lily, thank you so much for coming in. You can stick around for a few minutes if you guys think of anything else or have any other questions, but now I'm gonna